The 76th night. The following night Dinarzad said to her sister, "Tell us the rest of the story." Shahrazad said, "It is related, O king, that Jafar said to the caliph, when the Jew saw Badr al-Din, he kissed his hand and said, 'My lord, where are you going? For it is near the end of the day, and you are lightly dressed, and you look unhappy?' Badr al-Din replied, 'I was asleep a while ago, and saw my father in a dream. I woke up and came to visit him before nightfall.' The Jew replied, 'My lord and master, before he died, your father had a seafaring trade, and many of his ships have just arrived with his goods. I would like to ask you as a favor not to sell the cargo to anyone but me.' Badr al-Din Hassan replied, 'Very well.' The Jew said, 'I will this instant buy from you the cargo of the first ship to arrive for 1,000 dinars. Then he took out of the basket a sealed purse, opened it, and, setting up the scales, weighed it twice until he had 1,000 dinars. Badr al-Din Hassan said, 'It is sold to you.' Then the Jew said, 'My lord, write me an acknowledgement on a piece of paper.' Badr al-Din Hassan took a piece of paper and wrote on it, 'Badr al-Din Hassan al-Basri has sold to Isaac the Jew the cargo of the first ship to arrive for 1,000 dinars, and has received the money.' The Jew said, 'Put the paper into the purse.' And Badr al-Din placed the paper into the purse, tied it, sealed it, and attached it to his belt. Then he left the Jew, and continued to make his way among the tombs until he reached his father's sepulchre. There he sat and wept for a while, and recited the following verses. 'Since you left me, home is no longer home. Nor is the neighbor neighbor, since you went away. Nor is the friend who kept me company the friend I knew. Nor is the day bright day. Nor are the sun and moon that shone with light the same, for they will never shine again. In desolation you have left the world, in gloomy darkness every field and plain. Oh, may the crow that at our parting crowed his feathers loose and without shelter stand. My patience fails, my body wastes away. How many veils are torn by death's cruel hand? I wonder, will our nights come back again, and will the old home once more hold us twain?' Badr al-Din Hassan wept at his father's tomb for a full hour, thinking of his plight and feeling at a loss what to do or where to go. As he wept, he laid his hand on his father's tomb until he fell asleep. Glory be to him who sleeps not. He slept on till it was dark, when his head rolled off the tomb, and he fell on his back, and, with arms and legs outstretched, lay sprawling against the tomb. It happened that the cemetery was haunted by a demon, who sought shelter there in the daytime and flew to another cemetery at night. When night came, the demon came out and was about to fly away, when he saw a man, fully dressed, lying on his back. When he drew near him and looked at his face, he was startled by and amazed at his beauty. But morning overtook Shahrazad, and she lapsed into silence. Then Dinarzad said, 'Sister, what an entertaining story!' Shahrazad replied, 'What is this, compared with what I shall tell you tomorrow night, if I stay alive?' The 77th night. The following night Shahrazad said, 'It is related, O king, that Jafar said to the caliph, when the demon looked at Hussain al-Basri, who lay asleep on his back, he marveled at his beauty, saying to himself, "This can be none other than one of the children of paradise, whom God has created to tempt all mortals." He looked upon him for a long time, then he flew up in the air, rising until he was between the heavens and the earth, where he ran into a flying she-demon. He asked her, "Who are you?" And she replied, "I am a she-demon." Then he greeted her, and asked her, "She-demon, will you come with me to my cemetery, to see what the Almighty God has created among men?" She replied, "Very well." Then they both flew down to the cemetery, and as they stood there, the demon asked, "In all your life, have you ever seen a young man more beautiful than this one?" When the she-demon looked at Badr al-Din and examined his face, she said, "Glory be to him who has no rival. By God, brother, by your leave, I will tell you about an extraordinary thing I witnessed this very night in the land of Egypt." The demon said, "Tell me." The she-demon said, "Demon, you should know that there is in the city of Cairo a king who has a vizier named Shams al-Din Muhammad. That vizier has a daughter who is about 20 years old and who bears the most striking resemblance to this young man, for with an elegant and fine figure she is endowed with beauty, charm and perfect grace. When she approached the age of 20, the king of Egypt heard of her and, summoning the vizier her father, said to him, "Vizier, it has come to my knowledge that you have a daughter, and I wish to demand her of you in marriage." The vizier replied, "O king, accept my apology, and do not reproach me, but grant me your indulgence. As you know, I had a brother called Nur al-Din, who shared the vizierate with me in your service. It happened that one night we sat discussing marriage and children, but the next morning he disappeared, and for 20 years I have never heard of him. Recently, however, I heard, O king of the age, that he had died in Basra, where he was a vizier, leaving behind a son. Having recorded the date of the day I got married, the night I went in to my wife, and the day she gave birth, I have reserved my daughter for her cousin. Besides, there are plenty of other women and girls for our lord the king." When the king heard the vizier's answer, he was angry. But morning overtook Shahrazad, and she lapsed into silence. Then Dinarzad said, "Sister, what an entertaining story!" Shahrazad replied, "What is this, compared with what I shall tell you tomorrow night, if I stay alive?" The 78th night. The following night Shahrazad said, "It is related, O king, that Jafar said to the Caliph, 'The she-demon said to the demon,' the king, angry at the answer of his vizier Shams al-Din, said to him, 'Damn you, someone like me asked the likes of you for his daughter in marriage, yet you put me off with a lame excuse.' And he swore to marry her to none but the meanest of his servants. It happened that the king had a hunchbacked groom with 2 humps, one behind and one in front, and he sent for the hunchback and, summoning witnesses, ordered the vizier to draw the marriage contract between his daughter and the hunchback that very day, swearing that he would have the hunchback led in procession and that he would have him go in to his bride that very night. I have just now left the princess and their Mamluks waiting for the hunchback at the door of the bath, with lighted candles in their hands, in order to lead him in procession when he comes out. As for the vizier's daughter, she has been dressed and decked out with jewelry by her attendants, while her father is placed on the guard until the hunchback goes into her. O demon, I have never seen anyone as beautiful or delightful as that girl." The demon replied, "You are lying. This young man is more beautiful than she." The she-demon said, "By the Lord of this world, none is worthy of her but this young man. It would be a pity to waste her on that hunchback." The demon replied, "Let us take him up, carry him in his sleep to the girl, and leave them alone together." She said, "Very well," and the demon carried Badr al-Din Hassan al-Basri and flew with him up in the air, while the she-demon flew by his side. Then he came down to the gate of Cairo, and, setting Badr al-Din on a bench, awakened him. When Badr al-Din woke up and found himself in an unknown city, he started to make inquiries, but the demon jabbed him and, handing him a thick candle, said to him, "Go to the bath, mix with the Mamluks and the crowd of the people, and walk with them until you come to the wedding hall. Then press ahead and enter the hall as if you were one of the candle bearers. Stand at the right side of the hunchbacked bridegroom, and whenever the bride's attendants, the singing woman, or the bride herself approaches you, take a handful of gold from your pocket and give it to the woman. Don't hesitate, and whenever you put your hand in your pocket and take it out, it will be full of gold. Take it, and give it to those who approach you. Do not wonder, for this is not by your power or strength, but by the power, the strength and the will of God, so that his wise decree may be fulfilled upon his creatures." Then Badr al-Din Hasan rose, lighted the candle, and walked until he came to the bath, where he found the hunchbacked bridegroom already on horseback. So he mixed with the people in the guise and manner already mentioned, wearing a double turban. But morning overtook Shahrazad, and she lapsed into silence. Then Dinarzad said, "Sister, what an entertaining story!" Shahrazad replied, "What is this, compared with what I shall tell you tomorrow night, if the king spares me and lets me live?" The 79th night. Shahrazad said, "It is related, O king, that Jafar said to the caliph, Badr al-Din Hasan walked in the procession, and whenever the singing woman stopped to sing and collect money from the people, he put his hand in his pocket and, finding it full of gold, took a handful and cast it in the singing woman's tambourines until they were full of dinars. The singing women and all the people were amazed at his beauty and grace, and he continued in his fashion until they reached the palace of the vizier, who was his uncle, where the doorman drove back the people and forbade them to enter. But the singing woman said, By God, we will not enter unless this wonderful young man enters with us, for in all our life we have never seen anyone more beautiful or more generous, and we will not unveil the bride except in his presence, for he has given out a golden treasure in her honor. So they brought him into the wedding hall, and seated him on the dais to the right of the hunchback. The wives of the princes, viziers, chamberlains and deputies, as well as every other woman present, each veiled to the eyes and holding a large lighted candle in her hand, lined up in two opposite rows, extending from the dais to the bride's throne, which stood in front of the door from which she was to emerge. When the woman saw Hassan al-Basri's beauty and grace, and looked on his face, which was as bright as the new moon and as dazzling as the full moon, and looked on his body, which swayed like a willow bow, they loved his charm and flirtatious looks, and when he showered them with money, they loved him even more. They crowded around him with their lighted candles, and gazed on his beauty, and envied him his charm, winking at each other, for every one of them desired him, and wished that she was lying in his lap. Every one said, None deserves our bride but this young man. What a pity to waste her on the worthless hunchback. May God curse him who brought this about. And they cursed the king. The hunchback, who was wearing a brocaded robe of honor and a double turban, with his neck buried between his shoulders, sat rolled up like a ball, looking more like a toy than a man. He was like him of whom the poet said, Oh, for a hunchback who can hide his hump, like a pearl hidden in an oyster shell, or one who looks like a castor oil branch, from which dangles a rotten citric lamp. Then the woman began to curse the hunchback and to jeer at him, while they prayed for Badr al-Din Hasan and ingratiated themselves with him. Then the singing women beat their tambourines and played their flutes, as the attendants emerged with the bride. But morning overtook Shahrazad, and she lapsed into silence. Then Dinarzad said to her sister, Sister, what an amazing and entertaining story! Shahrazad replied, What is this, compared with what I shall tell you tomorrow night, if the king spares me and lets me live? The 80th night. The following night Shahrazad said, It is related, O king, that Jafar said to the caliph, As Badr al-Din Hasan sat on a bench next to the hunchback, the attendants emerged with his cousin. They had combed her hair and, inserting sacks of musk, braided her tresses, and after they had perfumed her with the incense of cardamom and ambergris, they decked her with robes and jewelry worthy of the Persian kings. She paraded in a robe embroidered in gold with dazzling figures of all kinds of birds and beasts, with eyes and bills of precious stones, and feet of rubies and green beryl. She wore a very rare and precious necklace, set with large, round gems that dazzled the eye and staggered the mind. As the attendants led the way with lighted camphor candles, her face shone under the candlelight, looking more brilliant than the full moon when it shines on the 14th night. With eyes sharper than a bear's sword, lashes that captivate the heart, rosy cheeks, and a swinging gait, she advanced, dazzling the eyes with beauty beyond description. The singing woman received her by playing on the tambourines and all sorts of musical instruments. Meanwhile, Badr al-Din Hasan al-Basri sat while the woman gazed on him, like the moon among the stars, with a radiant brow, a neck as white as marble, a face as bright as the moon, and a rosy cheek, graced with a mole like a disk of ambergris. As the bride approached, swaying gracefully, and unveiled her face, the hunchback rose and bent to kiss her, but she turned her head from him, slipped away, and stood before Badr al-Din Hasan, her cousin, causing the singing woman to cry out aloud, and the people to clamor. Badr al-Din Hasan put his hand in his pocket and, again finding it full of dinars, took out a handful and cast it in the singing woman's tambourines, and he kept taking out handfuls and throwing them to them, while they commended him to God, and signalled to him with their fingers, meaning to say, "We wish that this bride was yours." And as every woman at the wedding gazed on him, he smiled, while the hunchback sat alone like a monkey. Then Badr al-Din Hasan began to move excitedly, surrounded by servants and slave girls, who were carrying on their heads large trays full of gold pieces and dinars, part as a gift for the bride, part for distribution to the public. When the bride made her way to him and stood before him, he kept staring at her, contemplating the beauty that God had bestowed on her alone, while the servants scattered the gold pieces over the heads of the young and the old, and he was happy and rejoiced at what he saw. But morning overtook Shahrazad, and she lapsed into silence. Then Dinarzad said, "Sister, what a strange and entertaining story." Shahrazad replied, "What is this, compared with what I shall tell you tomorrow night, if I stay alive?"